Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello students, I am Jitesh Gola and today we are going to start with Unit 7 of Class 12 Sociology, that is State, Economic Development and Social Change. In this unit, we have divided it into major 4 parts. In first part, we'll do the discussion over the factors which are responsible for bringing change. One of them is land reform. We'll talk about its meaning, objectives of bringing that land reforms in India. In the second part of the chapter, we'll talk about the another factor, that is Green Revolution. We'll discuss about its meaning and consequences, means the outcomes. In the next one, we'll do the discussion over globalization and liberalization. We'll discuss about its meaning and the different implications, means its impact on Indian society. In the fourth part of this chapter, we are going to do the discussion over Panchayati Raj, where we'll understand the meaning of Panchayati Raj and what are its aims. We'll do the discussion over the structure also. Before proceeding, we need to understand the meaning of a state. So, if we define a state, it is a community of persons, those who are occupying a definite territory, independent of external control and having an organized government within those territories. So, a state is if we define a state, it's a group of different community people living in a single territory. Here, the external control is not existing. Means if we talk about state government have their own separate government where they are deciding the rules and regulation for the particular territory. Different major elements of a state, if we discuss here, are population of that particular state, its territory, the area it's covering, sovereignty and the government, the rule and the government who is going to rule over that particular state. The different functions a state performs, if we talk about state, it maintains law and order and different kinds of disputes which are occurring within the particular area. The state is resolving those through the appropriate legal system. So here if we talk about state is a community of a person where it is including different elements in it and performing the different functions also. And if we talk about a state, it has authority to control over its citizens, the people or the particular community, those who are living within that particular state or particular territory. The state has power to control over them. And like all the other institutions, if we talk about, the state is organized around a set of different social functions that we have already discussed, that what are the different functions it is performing, and beside that one more important function is there which comes under the control of government only, and that is the welfare of the people. And this welfare of the people is one of the important another domain of the state, of its different activities. This is also one of the part of the state's activity. If we talk about welfare means to do good for the people, especially the citizens of that particular state. And if we define welfare state, here if we are talking about welfare state, what is welfare state? So, it is a state where government looking for the basic responsibilities for the good of people, for the benefit of people and for their welfare. Here in such kind of welfare state, what is the responsibility of the government? The government decides or the government ensures that each and every person living within that particular territory must be having the equal access to the different facilities, for example, housing, food, healthcare facilities, education, employment, etc. So, all these facilities are provided. If we talk about education, proper education, healthcare facilities, employment, all these comes under welfare state. And whose responsibility it is? It is the responsibility of that particular state government to provide the access to all these facilities to the citizens. And if we talk about India, India is a democratic country. So we have divided our power among the different states, different federal units, and that's why we call India as a federal country also, where the power is divided among the different units. Here, these units, basically the states, where we call it as a state, they are playing very important role in bringing the changes by implementing the different kind of measures, where they are bringing the improvement, and those different factors which the different states are including in it, we are going to discuss about that one by one. So let's move to the first point and the first main part of this chapter. Here we'll do the discussion over the land reforms. What is the meaning of land reforms? We have to discuss that. And what are the objectives of the land reform? What is land? Land is the basic factor of economic production in agriculture. It is one of the basic factor out of all the other factors. The most important factor is land. However, if we talk about farmers or those who are engaged on the agricultural sector, they have different interests or rights, we can say, on the land. They don't have the equal access or the equal right. Some people are having the large land, some are having very less land, some are without land, and these are the laborer or the tenants, those who are doing the work on the farms of others. And such differing rights, if we talk about, or interest in land, these are known as land relations. So in this we can consider about land relations also, when we all are not having the same sort of access to the particular land, then what kind of relation we are going to have with the particular piece of land. Any change in the agrarian structure and in land relations bring about the social change also. We know that if we are bringing any of the change, structural change in our agricultural sector, then definitely the change will be very visible in the land relation also. And if that land relation change is visible, the direct impact is going to be there to bring the social change. That is, the change in society will be visible. And in India, if we talk about, these land reforms have brought about significant changes in agricultural sector, and which definitely has resulted in bringing the social change also. So let's move to the meaning of land reforms first. The term land reform is used in a narrow sense and also in broad sense. So if we are using the term land reform, it can be taken in both the senses, the narrow sense and the broader sense. In narrow sense, if we are going to define it, the land reform means the redistribution of rights in land for the small farmers and landless people. So simply in narrow sense, if we are going to explain the term land reform, so we can say redistribution of land, if we are doing again to give it to poor people, the small farmers or landless farmers. But in the broader sense, if we are going to define this land reforms, it means any improvement in the system of land relations and agricultural organization. So it is not confined to particular piece of land, it is not confined to particular area. It is going to be taken at a broader level, where we are talking about bringing the change in the system of land relation as well as bringing the change in agricultural organization. And definitely, if this kind of structural change if we are talking about, then definitely the impact of that is going to be visible on the whole society. So this broader sense, if we talk about, it does not restricted within redistribution of land, although it includes that also, but along with that it is talking about bringing change in agricultural sector and then leading to change in society, which is leading to bring the change in the society. So both the aspect of narrow and the broader sense has been taken in this second one. The United Nations also has accepted this broader means. Broader means where they are talking about the organizational change and the change in the system of land relation. The UN defines land reforms as integrated program of measures designed to eliminate obstacles to economic and social development arising out of defects in the agrarian structure. So in that broader sense that the United Nations has accepted, what they are talking about here, they are talking about that land reform is an integrated program where different things and the different factors are required to bring the change. And what they are supposed to do here, they are talking about to removing the different restrictions or the obstacles. They are talking about removing the different restrictions or the obstacles for the development of economy and the society in agricultural sector or in agrarian structure. These changes are supposed to be brought in agrarian structure, which can lead to development in economic as well as social system. In India also, if we talk about different land reforms measures were taken by the government, and here we talk about these were including removal or the abolition of intermediates, removal or the abolition of mediators. Tenancy reforms were also brought here, ceiling on land holding and the consolidation of holding. So in India also all these measures were adopted, and the main focus or the main purpose, if we talk about here in India, was also the same, to bring the change in economic as well as the social sphere of the society. And it was felt this kind of need when all the changes were brought in India. This kind of need was felt during the freedom struggles too. This was because of the land revenue system introduced by Britishers. And why this need started arising during that time period? Because the land revenue system introduced by Britishers was leading to the exploitation of landless farmers and the other farmers, under which system the condition of the poor farmer, if we talk about, or the agricultural sector, different movement you might have heard of, that we talk about the peasant movement also started during that time period. Even the tribal movements, different tribal movements, those were related to that agriculture, that also started during that time period. So somewhere the exploitation was going on, and which led to the rise of these different movements which started taking place during the freedom struggle before independence, only during the British rule. Important feature of land revenue system, if we talk about, were the zamindari system and different types of tenancy. The zamindars were intermediaries. The zamindars were intermediaries between the cultivators and state. So these zamindars, these landlords especially, were the main mediators between the cultivators, the farmers, and the state. State means government, the British government, if we talk about. So these were the mediator between the two, and they were doing the lots of exploitation of the poor farmer. They were charging very high tax from them, and their share they were keeping with them. Beside that, they were also getting some part from the British government, but they started doing the exploitation for their own benefit, and which led to the very pathetic or the poor conditions of the farmer during that time period. And during that time period, these poor farmers became the victims of money lenders also, because they were very poor, they were not able to fulfill the needs of these landlords, so they started taking the loans. And we know that in agricultural sector, informal loans are very well, and when they became the victim of these money lenders, it was not easy for them to come out of that trap, and that was taking them to the debt trap, where they were taking the loan and anyhow they were trying to pay to these landlords, which were imposing very high tax on them. So all these problems started leading to the poor conditions of people, poor conditions of farmer as well as the peasants. In different national movements and freedom struggles, if we talk about, one of the demand was related to this agrarian structure also, to bring the change in that structure or in the system of land revenue. Although due to this pressure and the demand, the Britishers brought some changes in the system, but actual changes or the actual land reforms, if we talk about the land reforms to bring the change in that land revenue system, were mainly brought after independence only. Now we are going to talk about what was the objectives of land reforms. We have already discussed the land revenue system, which was initiated by the British government and which brought so many problems for the poor farmer and the peasants. Then the demand arose for land reforms. So what was this land reform and what were the different objectives and the aims of land reforms? So we will do the discussion over that. The main aim or the objective of land reforms, if we talk about, are to modernize agriculture. So this was the first of the main demand, and the second was to reduce inequalities in agrarian economy and to reduce the inequalities in agrarian economy which was at vast level, means the distribution of land was not at all equal. There was inequality in land distribution. Some people were having very large land. On the other side, if we talk about, many poor farmers were there or the peasants were there, those who were landless, or through the different systems or the policies, their land was taken by zamindars or the landlords. And if we talk about these aims and objectives, they can be specified as follow. Firstly, to remove motivational and other impediments or the obstacles in the agrarian structure. Just to make it modernized one, to modernize the agricultural sector, it was required to remove the obstacles which were prevailing in the agrarian structure of the past to promote the development in agriculture. So this was one of the needs which was required on the part of the government to bring these changes. And the second one, if we talk about, to reduce the inequalities, what was required to remove the inequality and injustice in agrarian structure and to end the exploitation in order to ensure equality of status and opportunity to all sections of the population. So the second main aim which can be specified here, that we have done specification here, was to remove all sort of inequalities or the injustice which was going on in agricultural structure. And what was required for that? To end the exploitation which started during the British rule only, just to ensure the equality of a status and at least equal opportunity should be given to all sections of the population. The division was done in the rural sector, the division was done in the agricultural sector based on the land relation. So there it was required to bring the equality in status and the different opportunities given to all the people. And here if we talk about, this was the need at the time, and after independence only the main reforms were brought. In India, if we talk about land reform measures had the following aims and programs. The first one, abolition of forms of intermediaries, especially the zamindars, between the tillers of the soil and the state. Means the zamindars or the landlords, these people were the one, those who were the main exploiters, those who were responsible for the poor condition of the farmers or the peasants. Thus, abolition of zamindari system was a major objective of that land reform. So, one of the demand under the land reform was the removal of this zamindari system, because what these zamindars or the landlords were doing, we have already discussed although that they used to get the contract from the British government, and British government, instead of collecting the direct tax from the farmer, they appointed these mediators, these zamindars or the landlords, and mention them the particular percentage they have to collect from the peasants or the poor farmer. For example, if the Britishers told them that they have to collect 10% tax from these farmers, then what they were doing, the zamindars or the landlords, they were charging very high tax on that, around 80%, 90% from them, and after deducting their part out of it, means 70% they were keeping with them and only 10% they were giving to British government. So that kind of exploitation was going on. So under land reform, this was the main objective, or this was one of the dominant demand, that removal of the zamindari system must be there. The next one is conferment of ownership rights on cultivating tenants. Thus, tenancy reform was a major component of that. Here, they were asking for the tenancy reform, under which those who were cultivating the land for the longer period of time, it was the demand that they should have the ownership of that particular land. So that came under tenancy reform. Next one, and why was it so? Because when the poor farmers were working for these landlords, they were unable to pay the taxes, and anyhow their small land was taken by these bigger landlords or the zamindars. So now they started working as the tenants over their land, which led to their exploitation. So demand was that they should get their ownership right on their particular land. Next is imposition of ceiling on agricultural land holdings. The second was they were asking for the ceiling on agricultural land holdings, means the land holdings should be redistributed and the proper distribution must be there. It should be equally distributed among the people. Consolidation of land holdings, if we talk about, so that the fragmentation was removed in order to make the application of modern agricultural techniques easier. Consolidation means the division of land. Consolidation of land means they want that the fragmented land, which was further divided into different parts, means when the division of the land was done, it was divided into smaller areas. So what was the another demand under this land reform? They want that this land should be taken as the one. It should come under the single land piece, where it was easy to implement the modern agricultural techniques easily and to increase the production on that piece of land. Because when you are fragmenting the land, or when you are doing the division of the land in the smaller areas, the result, or if we talk about the productivity on these piece of land, will be less. But when you are going to consolidate the small pieces, if you are going to take together and making it as a big land, and then you are applying the different modern technology or modern techniques on that, modern technology or modern techniques on it, so definitely the productivity will increase. So for the productivity increase, it was decided to consolidate these pieces of land. The next one is rationalization of land records, so that records of rights over land were maintained. So next they asked for maintaining the proper land records so that the record of right over the land could be maintained properly and it could not be captured by by anyone else or the other dominant people through unfair means. So the maintenance of land record was also one of the demand under this land reform. If we talk about land reforms are a subject of a state which comes under the control of state government. That's why what we can say that the impact of land reform was not at all uniform because different states were following different land reforms. In some states it was adopted and some states it was not. And where it was adopted, we could not say that in all the states where these land reforms were adopted, the result or the impact was same. No, the one state was different from the another based on the outcomes or the consequences of these land reforms. We can also include in some state it brought the different changes. In some state where the changes were brought were at a major level and somewhere the very less changes were visible. But in overall, if we talk about these land reforms, definitely brought the positive change in the agrarian structure in the Indian society. So now we are going to discuss about some of the social consequences or some of the social outcomes of these land reforms. The first, here we'll do the discussion over these four. The first one is going to be abolition of zamindari and intermediaries. The second will do the discussion over the tenancy reform. The third will do the discussion over ceiling on land holdings. And the fourth will be the consolidation of holdings. So if we talk about the first one, abolition of zamindari and intermediaries, what was done under that all the states have abolished zamindari system. Means all states were involved in that where the zamindari system was totally abolished. What was the result of that? As a result, there has been a remarkable transition to modern agrarian structure. When the zamindari system was removed, it shifted to or it transmitted to the modern agrarian structure where the new policies started being followed by the government, the state government. The second is tenancy reform. This tenancy reform, if we talk about it, aimed at reforming about the regulation of rent of land, about the security of tenant also. Beside that, they talk about the right of purchase for the tenants. As a consequences, if we talk about as a result, large number of tenant farmers, they acquired ownership rights also. And when they acquired this ownership right, it encouraged them to bring the positive change and to increase the productivity in agricultural sector. It actually motivated them to improve the agriculture. And many were there, the small farmers, those who lost their land, they became the agricultural laborers on these lands. The next is ceiling on land holdings. Here under this reform, the ceiling on land holdings, the aspect of land reforms has not been very effective in many states because it was not adopted by many of the states where they were talking about the redistribution of the land after taking it from the many big landlords. In many states, the government has acquired the land held by landowners above the ceilings and they redistributed it to the needy farmer or the landless farmers. A large number of landless farmers have benefited from this. Those who are not having the land earlier, due to this reform, they got the benefit. and they started doing the production on these lands. And those who got the benefit of these land holdings, they were mainly from scheduled caste or scheduled tribes. If we can recall, the Bhudan was one of the things that was started in many of the hilly areas at the time when Mahatma Gandhi, with the help of Vinoba Bhave as a leader, Mahatma Gandhi initiated, and Vinoba Bhave also followed Mahatma Gandhi's teachings, and this Bhudan or sealing and land holdings, where the main objective was, where they asked the people to give their land for the poor farmer. And many of the states or many of the farmers or many of the zamindars, if we talk about, they came with that positive attitude, and many of them gave their land for the distribution to these poor landless farmers. The next one is consolidation of holdings. And consolidation of these holdings, basically it aimed at the consolidation of the small and the scattered holdings which were there in different villages. However, this has not been that much successful in all the states. So what we can conclude here, that we can conclude that we have seen the different reforms were adopted, different land reforms were adopted, but the result was, or the outcome if we talk about, was not satisfactory. It was little bit disappointing because all the people or all the states did not participated or did not actively adopted all these measures under these land reforms. And beside that, what happened, these land reforms brought the changes in the agrarian structure. Conflict, later it led to the conflicts as well as the tension among the different groups.